Hello, everybody. It's Property Bants and Rants again. I'm very lucky today. I've got the president himself. I've got Stephen McCarron, the president of Propertymark, and the estate agent on top of that as well. So doubly lucky. So Stephen's here today to talk about. First, he's going to do another podcast with me, but today he's here to talk about. I want to find out what a president really does. So Stephen, first of all, thank you for your time. I know you're really busy. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen. Stephen, so if you don't mind, we're just. In 2 seconds, if you just tell me, how long have you been an agent for, Steve? We'll go on to that just because.
33 years. Despite my youthful looks,
well, you must have started very young, Stephen. You must have started very young. But Stephen, you're the president of Propertymark, aren't you? So can you tell me a little bit about your journey of becoming the president of Property? How did that happen?
Well, what I always like to do is preamble and then tell you really how it came about. So I spent many years as young negotiator and coming up the ranks, reading my property magazines from the NAEA as it was at the time, and seeing all these old men, grey hair, grey suits, very important looking, double-barreled names, and admired them for what they did, but never ever thought that I was that important or even that I had ever a chance of doing anything of the like. And then that was doubled down to the fact that being from Northern Ireland in the late 80s and early 90s, given all the things that were going on, the opportunities were limited, especially for someone from Northern Ireland with an accent like mine. At one time, we would have been looked at, 2 or 3 times. And then, I don't know, I'll tell you how it happened. So there was a position for the regional executive had come up in Northern Ireland. And I remember saying to my wife, what do you think? She goes, well, the kids have grown up, they've left home, you've a bit of time in your hands, and you quite like doing what you do, so why not give it a go? And I was interviewed sitting in a hotel in Amsterdam on a summer holiday by Mark Hayward and Scott, okay? And then even then, it was a family holiday, it was all good, clean fun, that's all I'm going to say. And so they interviewed me, and then that afternoon we were travelling back. It was the end of the holiday, we were travelling back, and the phone call came, and it was Lauren, and she said, look, really liked your interview, and we'd like you to offer you the position. So that was great. Couldn't have been happier. As far as I was concerned, I had reached the pinnacle of my career. There was nothing left to do. I was very happy. And then through one thing or another, and I got to know all the regional executives, and I got a bit of an idea about what happened behind the scenes of Propertymark. And then the presidency thing came up with the vice presidency thing. And I thought, I had a bit of that, what do they call it, imposter syndrome. Thought, am I good enough? Should I do it? Will they find me out? All of those things. But I give it a go anyway. And again, well, Our Lady Luck was looking on me over me or what. I managed to get through, and I did my year as the vice president-elect, and then last year and up to the end of June is our current presidency.
So that's the way it has it president-elect, vice president. Is that the structure everyone follows?
Vice president, president-elect. Right, okay. Yeah, that's the structure. So you kind of get a run up to it. I was lucky in the sense that Liana Laporto, who was the president in my president-elect year, was kind enough to let me do a few of the conferences to get a bit of a taste and a flavour for what it was. Yeah. But the change in my day one to where I am now is just completely amazing, because I stood behind a lectern with A4 pieces of paper reading out what I wanted to say, and now we're at the point now where you have your slideshow, and you just do it, and it changes every time, and it's different every time. But the confidence that I have now compared to back then, and I was pretty confident, but public speaking and everything else, the things you learn from it are
100%. Well, I'd say 2 things. First of all, everyone's got a bit of imposter syndrome, haven't they? I mean, that you just go through that. And I would say I've seen you speak, and I thought you were really, really good. So, and that was some time ago. So you must be amazing now, Stephen.
Well, I wouldn't go with amazing. You have good days and you have bad days, and every single time I do it, David Fodda gets up and just makes me look like a complete clown.
Sorry, say it again, Stephen?
David Fodda. Whenever David does his thing. David's he's so funny and he's so passionate. But you can't compare and contrast because we've got 2 different styles.
Yeah, of course.
But I have to say this, the journey would have been all the poorer if I hadn't had him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Guys
always
are
the way.
like,
So the presidents seem to get with the Ireland Property Mark always
yeah.
connection. So what's a normal day then in the life of the presidency?
Well, okay. My typical days start when I'm on the road about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
And I have to travel from where I am in the tip of Northern Ireland, travel to the airport. So that's 2, 3 hours that you have to set aside. So off you head for a sort of a 5:30, 6 o'clock flight. And then you land wherever you're going to land. And the next thing then is it's probably another hour and a half journey to go to where you're going.
Mm.
So you get that done. You spend the evening, you do your bit at the conference. And it seems like an awful lot of time for what is effectively a 15-minute presentation, but it's who you get to meet and the conversations that you get to have with membership are the important part. It's not the standing up. It's definitely not that, even though it's really, really good to get up and tell someone about your journey and tell them what it is that's important to you. The most important thing are actually the people you meet before and after rather than that actual section itself. And it is an ambassadorial role. We don't have any power as such. But what we do have is we have the ear of those who do dictate what happens within Propertymark, and they've been very open to listening to what the members have been saying on the ground. So we're an important conduit between membership and the board. And it's been really important this year. People have been, I don't know whether they feel more relaxed with David and I, maybe, whatever it is, but they've been more approachable and they've approached us more. And so I think this year we've achieved an awful lot in terms of what's happened with the membership.
My next question, actually, Steve, what's some of the major milestones you think you've achieved in because you're coming up to the end of the presidency now, aren't you?
Up to the end of it, yeah.
In that year, what do you think your major milestones have been?
I think that the most important thing is that, first of all, people recognise in us that we are the same as they are. And there's no hoodoo around doing this, by the way. It's about being passionate about the industry. It's about wanting the best for everyone and trying to elevate them. Now, I'm not talking about elevating the industry, and I'm not talking about the changes that we need in terms of regulation or anything of the sort. It's about elevating people. If we start to elevate people, I think that's a really important thing that we need to do. So we are there, we listen to them, we speak with them. We don't try and be fancy, we don't try and be clever or anything else. And we take what they say back, and we take it back to the board. And in some cases, the board will affect certain changes that will make their life as a member easier and increase the value of their membership to them. And that is it in its most simplest form. That's what we are there to do. And even though you do it on a voluntary basis and it takes a year of your life, I am a richer man. Even if I'm financially poor as a result, I am a richer man for having been on this journey and haven't been able to do that for the membership.
Well, because you guys devote a lot of time. It's unpaid, and you guys you devote a lot of your time. You run a business and you run an agency, so that's a lot of time out. It's a big commitment where it's going to impact on your business, isn't it? So it's a big commitment for you to do that.
Well, I've actually, to be fair, I've done everything in my power not to let it affect the business now.
Right. Okay.
It's probably noticed more of a change over the last 4 months than I had in the previous 7. Okay, we're near the end. It's become much more intense over those last 4 months because there have been more conferences, etc., etc. But I always, I'll start my day earlier if there's stuff I need to attend. I'll try and get something squeezed in at some stage in the middle of the day. And again, when I'm at the airport's a great place for catching up on things. So I've allowed it to impact as little as possible.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of the day, we do have businesses to run as well, and we have to keep an eye on that. But somehow, well, Our Lady Luck has been looking down on me, or whatever your belief system is. I've been very, very blessed, and I've been able to do both things. And so far, there hasn't been any collateral damage.
But what's the time commitment over the course of a month? How many hours are you spending on that?
We were on the road 2 days a week, every week.
Right.
And then that's just that block of time. And then anything else that's around that also takes up your time, whether it's phone calls, whether it's emails, whether it's talking to members, whatever the case may be. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of stuff happens in the background. Yeah, and it has been intense, but again, I can't complain because I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to do it. And I only wish you could do it for 2 or 3 years because I'd be quite happy to do it for 2 or 3 years. But there we go. Everybody has to have their chance.
Yeah,
Everybody's got a different message.
Yeah, it's true. So, tell me about a significant challenge you've faced. I mean, there's been lots of things. I mean, you've come at a time where actually there's been lots of changes in it. So, what's been the most significant challenge you've faced in your presidency, and how have you dealt with that?
I don't know if I would. I think it'd be really unfair if I pretend there were challenges. Challenges to me, you have to understand where Propertymark's at this moment in time. I would have said to you, had I come into my presidency a year and a half or 2 years earlier, there would have been many more challenges. The challenges have been kept in absolute minimum because of how good the team are at Urban House and how good the board are at doing their job. And they've been so effective that it's actually unbelievable how good they've been.
But can you just bear with me one second? Sorry, Steve.
Thanks. Yeah, just let you know I'm off.
Okay. Sorry about that, Steve.
You're okay.
We can edit.
You said it's not live, so
we can edit that. We can edit that. Yeah. So great. Sorry.
So anyway, what I was saying is, because of how effective the board have been, they've actually taken the pressure off the presidential team to do what they set out to do, and that is to engage with membership, to listen to what they have to say, and to promote the message of Propertymark. And the message of Propertymark is simple. We're here to make your life better. We're here to make you more professional. But we're here to raise standards. And the most important thing is we regulate our members. And that means that whoever is dealing with a Propertymark member can be assured of the best possible service. And those are the messages that we have to deliver. We're not just delivering them to our members, but we're out there to deliver to the public as well, because we are the if you like, the image, the front for Propertymark this year. And that's what we're doing.
And that membership, has the membership, is it on the increase? Is it the membership or
the membership is around 18,000. And the reason why I think it probably could be much more, and it probably was much more in the past, but here's the thing. People want to be members of Propertymark, but people don't necessarily want to put in the effort studying for exams and qualifying as Propertymark member. And in many ways, people find excuses not to do that. And those who don't want to do it, I always question them anyway, because every day is a school day. You can't stop learning. There's so much that we know, and there's so much that we don't know. And if we knew everything, well, we'd all be amazing human beings, but we absolutely don't. So Propertymark is a very select organisation in the sense that you have to be qualified to be a full member, so that we know, and when you speak to your client, you're giving them the best possible advice, and you're staying up to date with all that's going on within the industry. And that is probably why we don't have more members. But I do believe there is a sea change in that also, because more and more people are beginning to recognise and understand that education is the only way in which to advance your career. And more employers are now looking for qualified Propertymark members, and that will drive membership. Not only will that drive membership, the actual offerings that we have for members are way above anything anywhere else can offer. I mean, I know there are membership bodies through one way or the other, but we are here and we work hard to keep all our members compliant and up to date with everything that's happening.
Okay, so I know the requirements, but can you just explain for the listeners what the requirement is? It mandatory so it's mandatory to join Propertymark to be a business?
No. So ROPA, obviously you've heard of the regulation of property agents, and it's still swirling around Westminster, and nobody has made any decision on it yet. But the bottom line being that every estate agent in the UK becomes regulated. So there's a certain standard that they must achieve. They don't achieve that standard, then they cannot be an estate agent. And then if you're a business owner, it goes above that again. So you have to have a higher qualification to either be a director or a business owner. So the idea behind ROPA would be that you would have to have a minimum level 3 qualification. That's the very least that you can have. And obviously Propertymark, through Propertymark qualifications, have been offering that qualification for many years. if you want to be a business owner, then you have to go that level higher for a level 4 qualification. Now, someday, and I hope it's not too far off, ROPA will become law. And every agent in the UK will have to be qualified. And those who don't or won't, well, they'll fall to the wayside, much like what happened in the insurance industry, much like what happened whenever mortgage brokers or mortgage financial advisors were regulated also, right? Those who just didn't want to comply, well, they lost their license, and that was it. That was the end of it. So I believe the sea change will be people recognize that level 3 and level 4 qualification is going to become mandatory, and they're now setting off their journey to begin to do that. And that in turn will mean that they will have the opportunity to join Propertymark and become a member of a professional organisation. And that's where that's where we will see a sharp uptake in membership. And I would say that will happen sooner or later.
I think there's so many wins out of that, isn't it? Because I think it just raised the standard of the profession, but you're going to attract a lot more people, because I think, I think historically agencies being seen as, because of some bad agents, it's been seen as, well, anyone can do it, but it's not right. To be a good agent, you have to actually have great experience, and you need to know how to run a business and sell a property and things like this. So I think that's the way forward, 100% the way forward. And as you say, I think when they make it mandatory, obviously the standards are going to increase across the board. So which has got to be a win for the consumer, isn't it? And that's what we're here for, really.
Well, we are all here for the consumer, but there was something else that I was in Washington nearly 2 weeks ago now.
Name dropping in Washington.
Yeah, but I have to tell you this story, right?
Every couple of months you're in Washington, I imagine.
Yeah. This was the takeaway. Now, there are many things that I could have taken away from this.
Tell me, you're in Washington. What were you doing in Washington? Tell me what you're doing in Washington.
So there was the National Association of Realtors Conference, and they have like an international arm that have a bilateral agreement with Propertymark. And so they exchange ideas and they go backwards and forwards to each other's conferences. And it's a really special relationship. And our American cousins, as I like to call them, right, in many ways, they're really, really progressive. We mightn't necessarily love the schmaltziness of some of it, right? But that's just American culture. I quite like it. I quite like being told to have a really good day, with some smiling, beaming at me. Albeit the sun was shining, and here it's usually raining, dark and miserable. But I think one of the things that would change the view of the general public about estate agents is if we had more collaboration with each other. I said this to someone else. There is this kind of we have what we hold theory in the UK, and estate agents don't like sharing with other estate agents. It's almost a known thing, right? Don't have anything to do with them up the road. Let's just us be us. Can you imagine how the public would view it if you had a client that you sold a house for and you said, look, my colleague John up the street, or David who's across there, is selling this really lovely property. Would you like me to pick up the phone and ask David to arrange an appointment? Rather than almost trying not to get them to go to David's or don't go to John's or whatever the case may be, right? And to improve how we interact as agents with each other. And I think that would send a more powerful story out as well to the general public, that we genuinely care for them and we want the best for them. Because as I see it now, that's not what happens. And it's such a simple thing to do. And it isn't going to change my bottom line. If it happens that David sells his property, then brilliant. That's fantastic for David. My client's going to be very happy that I recognised that this was a house that was going to suit them. And I think that's something we need to embrace throughout the United Kingdom as well, and begin to show better cooperation, better collaboration. And I think the general public would pick up on that, and that will improve how people view us, because people talk about sharp practices and so on and so forth. I have to be honest. In my 33 years of estate agency, I think I've come across one person that I thought that was, for want of a better word, a shyster. So, Americans have a lot to show us. There's no doubt about it. We could learn a lot of lessons from them. But likewise, they will probably say the same and say they like a lot of what we do and a lot of what our systems are. Yeah,
as you say, every day's a learning day, isn't it? We've got to learn from each other, haven't we? Really.
Yeah.
So tell me about. You sound like you're really busy, but tell me about any moment that you've been particularly proud of, or any achievement that you think you know what, knocked the socks off that one? What's something?
Well, it happened quite quickly, actually. So it was at last year's NAEA conference. I was not prepared for this. I was absolutely blindsided. And after my speech, and the day went on, and there was this woman that was sort of circling. And I've noticed her a couple of times over the day. And coming towards the end of the conference, she comes across with me and her friend sort of talks and goes, look, and I won't name her names, but she really would like to say something. And I went, okay. And she started crying.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, when someone starts crying, I was sort of like, there, it's okay. And she goes, I'm so happy today. And I went, I'm really happy you're happy. Because I'm from Ireland. And I moved away from Ireland when I was 4 years of age. And I'm really, really happy that there's an Irish president. Right? So if somebody's going to ask me what was my takeaway from it, that first day, it was just blew my socks off. That poor girl, right? And she was beyond emotional. Now, obviously, maybe there was something else happening there with her as well. It just resonated with her. But the fact that happened, I went away. I felt so proud.
Yeah, can imagine
to be in that position.
Yeah.
But there are loads of little things that have happened. Anybody that's ever come up to me after I've presented or whatever else and come and said, look, I really like what you said about this, or I really like what you said about that, then that's a win. And that just proves that I've done something right. And if I've only done it 5 times, then it's only 5 times, but I've done something right 5 times. And that's the important part, that if I can engage with the audience and they can go away with a positive message, and David can engage and the same thing happens, then we've done our job and we've done it well.
It's a lovely story. I mean, that's going to stay with you for life, really, something like that.
Will stay with me, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But so Stephen, what are you going to do with all your time now? You're coming up to the end of your presidency. What's going to happen?
Well, so hopefully I'm not finished yet. So I've applied to become a board member, and the election's open today.
Okay.
And I have a lot to offer still, and it's not because I'm bored or I've got time in my hands, but our kids have grown up and they're away doing their own thing now, and I do have the time to give to it, and I am passionate about it. And when I say, people often use the word passion an awful lot, but estate agency is something that's in your blood or it's not in your blood. I don't believe there's any in between. It's like you either have it or you don't. And it's not about making money. I mean, yes, it's given me a really good lifestyle, and I've been able to raise 3 children, and they've had a really comfortable lifestyle. But it's not about money for me. It's about the job, because I love it so much. And I care about what I do, and I care about how people perceive us. And anything I can do to make things more positive, I'll do. Anything I can do to help Propertymark, I will do. And if the membership decide that they want me to sit on that board seat, then brilliant. And if not, I think I'll just lock myself in the bedroom and cry for a week.
So how do people vote for you, Stephen? How does that go?
So everybody was sent out an email today, and depending on what discipline they are, if they are NAEA, then they would have got the email out for the 2 runners for the vice presidency this year and the 2 runners for the board. And if they were Arla members, then Arla get their own board member and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was sent out today. I mean, it is a waiting game, but I can't sit on my hands either. There are many phone calls to be made and people to be begged and so on and so forth. So, I'm holding back the big guns. I'm not offering out pints of Guinness yet, but we might get there eventually.
Fantastic. Okay, Stephen. Well, listen, I think you've done an amazing job. I have seen you speak, and I think I've always been very impressed with what you said. And I know that passion is there. I know you really want to help the industry as well. So, I think you've done a great job. So I hope you get what you want, really. So, Stephen, I'll let you go. I know you're really busy. I know you're always out and about, so I'll let you go. But thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I know people can get tremendous benefit. And thank you for all the work you've done this year.
Thank you, too.
Thank you very much.